Mr. Chair, one of the documents just say 250 in it, one of the Word documents. I think a couple of them I was looking at it says 250.
It's changed to 250 because they included in their final
Yeah.
application, they included the reentry program. Did everybody prepare their questions?
Yes.
We we have two of our guests here, and we have four. We have a quorum. We ready to get started, Mick? Okay, we will start. Call the public safety meeting to order, and I will read the public notice. The Board of Alders Notice, New Haven. The Public Safety Committee of the Board of Alders will meet Tuesday, November 17th at 6 p.m. via video conference at https://bit.ly/3ngno1n and by voice call at 646-558-8656. Webinar ID 985-5176-0982 and voice call only passcode 645-472-7728 to hold a workshop on the following item. Resolution of the Board of Alders of the City of New Haven authorizing the mayor of the City of New Haven to submit an application to the State of Connecticut Office of Policy and Management in the amount not to exceed $250,000 to provide overtime for COVID-19 mitigation and response efforts, including violent crime reduction, and to accept such funds and to execute all documents and contracts as necessary. For accessibility-related requests, please contact 203-946-7833 voice or 203-946-8582 TTY prior to the meeting. Public comment or testimony may also be submitted via email to publictestimony@newhavenct.gov before 2 p.m. on the day of the meeting. To view the meeting online, go to https://bit.ly/3ngn01n of Board of Alders YouTube page. Welcome everyone who's come to sit in on this meeting. It's a workshop. I'm Gerald Antunes, Ward 12. I'm the chair of the committee, and I will ask the committee members to introduce themselves in the order as published, starting, since my vice chair is not here, I don't see Crespo here. Alder Roth, you're next.
Abby Roth, Ward 7.
I don't see Haywood in the office. Alder Singh. Unmute, please, Alder Singh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Alder Singh, Ward 5.
And Alder Smith.
Alder Smith, Ward 30.
Thank you, everyone. All right, we have the one agenda item tonight. That's the grant. And I see more people are arriving. Mr. Spell is here. Assistant Chief Dominguez, Assistant Chief Jacobson, Ms. Karigian, and I guess a couple of guests. So we'll ask the team from the police department and Mr. Spell to start the presentation on the grant request and the program, just so that folks know or are not confused. This item went on UC, unanimous consent, part of the agenda at yesterday's full board meeting. The reason for that was the state sent out this application very late, and the police department only had about a week to prepare and submit. So we didn't want to miss the window. Assistant Chief Jacobson, are you starting?
Sure, sir. Good evening, Alders. Thank you for having us tonight. We appreciate you hearing this item.
And please, if for all those who will be speaking at the start of your presentation, we will need your name and address for the record.
Carl Jacobson, 31 Brook Lane, North Branford, Connecticut. The Assistant Chief of the New Haven Police Department, the Detective Division. As you stated, Alder Antunes, this is a grant that has two sides to it. One is approximately $125,000 to assist us with overtime. There's a patrol intervention aspect and investigations intervention aspect to approach the violent crime that has increased since the COVID-19 pandemic. The second part of the grant, and I'll let Mr. Spell explain it more in depth, is $125,000 for education and training, security deposits, and trauma-informed therapy related to, we're going to work with Project Longevity on that aspect. The first $125,000 for overtime. The investigations unit, we're looking at 78-hour shifts for investigations for detectives into violent crime, and using our tools of Project Longevity, such as target enforcement, custom notifications, and we will hopefully eventually get a call in at some point. We will, as we meet daily in the daily intel meetings, we will use our resources and talk about what acts of violent crime are happening. And on the investigative side, we will go out and meet people who are at risk and talk to them about pushing them in the direction of services with Mr. Spell, or asking them, to stop the violence. But if they do not stop the violence, we will go out and make arrests and the investigation end. And I'll just have Assistant Chief Dominguez talk about the patrol intervention part. We don't hear you. Oh, we can't hear her. So if you don't mind, Renee, you got it?
Yeah, can you hear me now? I was taking my earphone.
Yep.
All right. That just means you might hear children. Apologize. Renee Dominguez, 1 Union Avenue, New Haven, Connecticut, Assistant Chief of Patrol. So on the patrol end of the first 125,000, we would also be, it would be approximately 81 two-person 4-hour shifts for 8 hours total. And we would use that for high violent areas where we're seeing some issues. So depending on what we get from the intel unit to be able to say, these are the areas that we're seeing some spikes in crime. If we're able to follow some trends, and we would then deploy on whatever shift is necessary and whatever day of the week is necessary. So it gives us a little flexibility to be looking at when these crimes are occurring and how we could best target with some preventive patrols and some presence in the areas that we're seeing the most crime. So it would be a week-to-week assessment of where that is, and then for deployment.
And then the next phase of it would be the Project Longevity phase. Mr. Spell, you want me to cover that, or you got it, sir?
I have it. Good evening, Stacy Spell, 157 Church Street, 25th floor. And I'm the program manager for Project Longevity. Project Longevity is looking to continue in being innovative and creative as we try to mitigate the rising numbers in homicides and shootings. To date, we know that we've seen an increase of 125% in homicides compared to last year. Alone, the amount of shootings, we've seen an increase of 47.2%. And we've seen an increase in 31% of shots fired. All components of our city are being affected. Neighborhoods that were normally not affected by this, such as Beaver Hills, the Webb, are seeing a strong uptick. We are looking to provide assistance in housing. Currently, in the past, we have had what was called housing vouchers, and they were a limited stock. We are down to our last two. One of the increasing concerns we see from young men and young women that are engaged in this criminal activity is stable housing. You have young people who are couch surfing, from staying with a friend to friend, staying on a couch, staying here and there. We need, if we're to be effective in our outreach, we need to address that issue, as well as a large number of the young people that we're dealing with, or the men and women that we're dealing with, their education has been interrupted. So we want to be able to continue to provide a way for them to have a hand up, not a handout, so that we can elevate their living wage, and that they can maintain a living wage that is sustainable. Currently, if you work two minimum wage jobs, you're still going to be challenged to meet the expenses of raising a family, especially if you have more than 2 children. So we're looking to engage a greater swath so that we can at least.
Oh, we're losing them a little bit.
We lost you, Stacy.
Stace, you cut out.
That they can.
There we
I'm
go.
sorry, my internet. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
My wife's on another meeting in the other room, so we want to be able to affect their future. We want to change their destiny, and the only way you're going to change your destiny is empowering them with a better living wage and empowering them with education, whether it's from a GED program or whether it's going to a training program. That are the goals of this grant. Any questions?
Not yet. I think we might reserve all the questionings for after the presentations.
Thank you, Alder. Always great seeing you.
Thank you. Good seeing you. Tell your wife stop tying up all the bandwidth. All right. Are we going to hear from Ms. Karigian? Is that next?
Hello, yes. Actually, I'm prepared to answer any specific budget questions that might come up, but I think that the Assistant Chiefs and Mr. Spell covered the goals of the programming pretty completely.
Okay. Good general overview. I'll open it to my colleagues. So let's see, we're going to start with Crespo is still not on. All right, Alder Roth, your questions, please.
Thank you, Chair. I thought I saw Alder Crespo's name pop up, but perhaps I imagined that. Thank you all for your presentation, and thank you obviously for seeking this grant, which is very important. I have maybe, Chair, if I'll ask a few questions and will we have a second round? Should we each ask 3 and then go around?
Yes, let's do that. 2 or 3 questions, and we'll go around again, because I think I may have a few more than that as well.
Great, thanks. Obviously for Project Longevity, there's lots of need. Do you have a sense like how you'll divide up the 125,000? Unfortunately, isn't very much money, and so kind of how you'll decide what money will go for housing, security deposit needs, how that will work.
Yes, there is a predetermined number that we've budgeted for 15 clients, which is a large swath, and it's a goal we're intending to meet. We know that we have to be innovative in our practices to reduce the gun violence, and we hope that this will be just another tool in our toolbox that will help us achieve that.
So just to clarify, it's 15 clients we're hoping to get 15 clients per category. So related to education and training service, 15 clients. Related to security deposits, 15 different clients. Related to trauma-informed therapy, another 10 to 15 clients. So that will encompass a lot of people.
And are those people already in the program, or this is a way to hopefully encourage new people? Sorry to not be clear on that, to encourage new people to become part of the program.
So Project Longevity has a long list of people who have come through our doors since the beginning of 2012. Not all of them have had the opportunity to utilize our services. So this gives us an expanded base, whereas in the past, we've not had the funding to meet those goals. In the past, as I said, we would normally have a number of housing vouchers, and we've depleted all of them. One of the biggest, as I can't repeat enough, is one of the biggest crises we see is the housing and the education. The housing is really primary, because if you are a young man who your children are in a questionable living situation and you would like to elevate their status, the only way you can do that is by obtaining a sustainable housing that's safe and secure. But if you're not making the money that you can afford, the money for the security and the money for the first month's rent, you'll never be able to do that. Some of our success stories have been those young men who have, through pulling, I don't want to use that expression, pulling your bootstraps out, but by coming through, getting an enlightened sense of hearing what has been said to them about reducing the violence, changing their lifestyle, and them actively working the steps to change their lifestyle, getting their children, and then needing a place, a safe and secure place for them. like I said, as I said, some of the best success stories that we have been that. We would like to do more of that.
Yeah, and I would add to that and say there's people that weren't part of Project Longevity 2 years ago that didn't have the need, might have been doing well. Now they're pulled into some kind of violent confrontation. Now they need us, and we hope to use it for prior clients, new clients, whatever, however we can help.
Yes.
Thank you for that. I guess I'm not clear if the increase in violence, I mean, if the people are all people who live in New Haven, or are some people who just come into the city, are doing violent acts and leave, and so are kind of the Project Longevity for people who are sort of transient and not really New Haveners? Like, how does that, but maybe it is local crime.
Yeah, most of the violent crime per se is local. We do have some group and gang conflicts that go as far as Hartford or Bridgeport, but we're not looking to service the Bridgeport participants in this violence. We're servicing the New Haven participants. So our outreach programs are specific to New Haven residents, I would say, right? Stace, am I hitting that on the head? That's a great question, because sometimes there is transient violence, but the majority of us being able to stop it through Project Longevity is changing the behavior at home, changing the people in our neighborhoods, giving them better opportunities, and that's what we strive to do.
You hit the nail on the head, Chief.
Thank you. And I have one sort of technical budget question, and then I'll defer to my colleagues and then wait for the second round for other questions. I know in the last budget, monthly budget report we received, which was through September, the estimated for the police overtime would be like 2.45 million over budget. Essentially, I'm curious if this grant was factored into that number, or if we can subtract 125,000 from that overtime number.
I would say we're hoping to subtract from that overtime number. Those were estimates based on violent crime, based on reaction to violent crime. This will help us do that. So I would say definitely, but I'll let Ms. Cohesion, who is the expert in numbers. Would you say that's correct?
I think so, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alder Roth. We'll move on to Alder Singh. You have questions, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this is for Project Longevity, or Chief Jacob. I'm pretty much interested in the education and component of it. How does this institute, and what's the follow-up, and what the success rate in that? Thank you.
So for the education, in the past, we have been able to pay for, let's say, 2 slots for CDL, which was one of the most desired things from feedback. We will be able to increase that, and we will be able to expand that so that if a person wanted to choose culinary or interior design or masonry or electrical, that we would be able to pay in full for their training. Now, we have only a few people who have reached out and might said, well, I would like to go to Gateway for classes, but I can't afford it. This would give us an opportunity to pay for it. Or if they wanted to go to a traditional state school like Southern Connecticut, we would be able to pay for it. Again, it is to elevate the mindset, elevate their status in life, change their trajectory so that they are no longer thinking about carrying that pistol and carrying out that shooting on Greenwich Avenue, right? But they've walked away from it, and now they are one of those ambassadors that saying change is possible. That's what we're looking to.
Yeah.
And I would add to that too and say that the GED component is going to be very important this year. We've actually been assisting the Board of Education in locating kids. There's a lot of kids not logging on, especially older kids. And now we'll be able to hopefully get to the other side in the spring and say, well, maybe you didn't want to finish high school, but let's finish your GED. Let's get moving in the right direction. So I feel, and Stacy and I feel, that we'll get more of those type of students this time around due to the pandemic. So we're hoping that money will go towards that as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Chief Jacob, and thank you, Mr. Spelling. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Alder Singh. Also want to recognize Alder Crespo has come on, and I imagine soon he'll get his camera working. And I also believe that Commissioner Ribeiro is on the call at some point. There she was. You guys are really talking about spreading this money a long way, so it'd be interesting to see, and I hope it can go a long way. Next up is Alder Smith. You have questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't really have any questions. I just want to say that I've seen great results from this project longevity from 2012. It has been a great success rate, and just from looking from 2012 into current and how the homicide rate have basically increased, it just shows that we do continuously need this program. I've seen them being very instrumental in several ways. One ways were people that were also in my family, gave them the opportunity to make a better life for themselves, to be able to get a job so that they can be self-sufficient. So I've seen it to be a very positive program. I wish that we can give them more money or more money that they can find, because it has helped the city in many different ways of getting the gang out of these neighborhoods. Being that I'm in one, and I know a couple of other alders in a lot of these areas have a lot of gang violence that's going on. But I've noticed through this program with Project Longevity, working with the people, you know, and having that relationship, finding a medium between the gang people that's creating the violence, and a lot of them begin to tell on each other, but it's because of the respect factor. So I said, this is a very, very instrumental program to this city, and I hope that in due time we can find much more money to help them to increase doing what they're actually doing. So that's all I had to say. Thank you for Mr. Spell, Assistant Chief Jacob, and Assistant Chief Domingo for the hard work in which that you guys have been doing in this city. Thank you, Sir Chair.
Thank you, Alder.
Thank you, Alder Smith. I got to say, I knew Stacy Spell for a long time, before we came on the police department. I think he's working harder now than he did when he was in the Bureau years ago. But it's really nice to see. I've heard a lot of positive things. I've seen a lot of positive things from him. So I'll add a few questions in, and then we'll start our second round. Oh, well, no, we'll have to go to, there he is. Alder Crespo, do you have any questions for the group, or you want to wait until you hear more responses?
I'll wait to hear for more responses, Mr. Chair, and I apologize for my delay.
Okay, accepted. All right, I'll go on my questions. I want to get on a piece of patrol. Patrol is the first line of defense that the police department has, or the city has. Can you give us an idea of what type of things the uniformed people will be doing? I mean, right now we're getting a lot of complaints from all over the city about the lack of response of the uniformed officers, and the public is generally really upset with that. Will this help to change that any? I mean, it's not a lot of money, but will this help to put a different view for police officers in the eyes of the public? I can't hear you yet, Chief Dominguez.
What's going on? I don't know what's going on today with that. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So 81 two-person shifts is going to put a lot of, officers on the street, especially in the short amount of time that we have to use this grant. It's until December 31st. Yeah. So it'll be a saturation in the areas, in the neighborhoods where we feel are most affected by violence. It'll be proactive patrol. It'll be some high presence in the areas. And then it'll be responding to those priority ones directly related to violence. So if a shooting comes in, if gunshots come in, a robbery comes in, we'll be utilizing those resources as well to help flood the area, to be looking for suspects, to be looking for cars, to be just enhancing what the regular duty patrol officers will be doing.
All right.
It could be used for, I'm sorry to interrupt you. It could be used Additionally, thinking outside the box with the district managers, if they think that a walking beat would be helpful, if they think that a bicycle beat would be helpful for their specific area and their specific problem that they're trying to tackle related to violence. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a vehicle.
So you said for patrol it'd be 81 4-hour shifts. So that would be actually half of that because you're using 2 officers. Is that it? You said 2 officers together?
No, that's total. That's 81 2-person 4-hour shifts.
Oh, okay.
So 2 people will get so it's double, not half.
Right.
It's double that. It's 162. And obviously, Chief Jacobson and I work very well together. So if there's a need more on the patrol side, obviously we would shift the resources over. We just this is a guide, knowing that it's for the city, it's for the whole police department. So it doesn't necessarily have to be put in these small boxes that can't be moved.
And with these shifts, it will also free up the routine shifts to be able to respond quicker to routine calls. So I think you're going to see an increase in, a decrease in the call for service time, which I know has been a big complaint. And we've had that due to COVID and putting people out on quarantine, but now we'll be able to put more people into the violent areas. But also when you do that, you also have free up cars to respond to routine calls as well.
All right, I guess I'm going to ask a question that may sound crazy. Did you feel that there was any need to include our emergency communications into this grant? Did they need more personnel to address any additional calls?
No, we communicate with the heads of PSAP weekly in our chiefs meeting, and we haven't gotten that impression from them. Unfortunately, they had a terrible tragedy this week, and we all feel for them here at the police department, but we haven't gotten that feedback yet that they're to the point where they need the extra shifts. But I know they have, had some challenges too. So.
All right, just to put a cap on my few questions. When the grant is through, December 31st pops up and the grant is finished for the police side of it. What is your plan to maintain some sort of flow or control afterwards? There's got to be some sort of maintenance program. That's for both chiefs, assistant chiefs.
Yeah, we would then use regular overtime funds to help to continue to manage. And then if any other OPM money or anything is coming further in the future, we obviously, go ahead, Sandy.
Yeah, and there's also JAG funding. JAG 2020 funding, Justice Assistance Grant, which is a separate grant from this. There'll be funding there is a funding for overtime for that.
And we've recently partnered with our federal agencies more, and we've got a bunch of federal, if you look at the overtime breakdown, you'll see a lot of reimbursable monies have been coming in from the federal agencies like the FBI, the DEA, and the ATF to work on specific cases targeting violent crime. So where the Bureau money cuts out, it actually will be able to be sustained through our federal agencies.
Okay, I looked through the portion of the state write-up. Did they say that there's a chance to renew this or get additional funds at the end of this grant?
You're talking about OPM?
Yes.
I did not hear. Well, no, I'm sorry. There may be additional money, yes. They did not say how much, and they did not say when they would make any announcement, but they said there was a possibility.
Okay, thank you. I think I went over my 3 questions. Alder Roth, you're up again.
Would Alder Crespo go in order, Mr. Chair, before me?
No, he wanted to hold off a little bit.
Okay. Thank you then, Mr. Chair. So a few questions, and this just I think to I actually am not. I was interested to hear about Project Longevity and working with kids who haven't been signing on in school, which is great to hear. I don't know enough about how it interconnects with UStat. If maybe just to get what the relationship is between Project Longevity and UStat to just better understand that.
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. I appreciate it. And Stace, if you don't mind, because we just did a bunch of meetings with kids at their homes, and what we did is we combined with Len Jihad and the street outreach workers, juvenile probation, and Ron Huggins and the youth. Basically UStat. I don't believe they call it UStat anymore. And what we did is we picked kids that weren't signing on and that were at risk for violence. And might have been recently arrested for a robbery or something. And we went to over 25 different houses, and we asked the parents and the kid to come in the backyard, and we discussed issues such as, are you guys okay? Are you safe on the police side? And then the school said, do you have a laptop? Can we help you log on? And we went through every aspect. And then juvenile probation said, you might have a court date or you might not have a court date. And we went through each phase of it. And, the city youth department was able to provide some Walmart cards, and juvenile probation provided some cards, and we provided some cards. So every kid got some kind of gift card. Every kid got the opportunity to log on to school. And in these cases, we're going back and doing follow-ups as well. It's not directly Project Longevity, but it's in the spirit of Project Longevity. It's working with the Project Longevity partners. And we're going to these houses, knocking on doors, engaging with these kids who are at risk. And that's whether they're at risk to be shot or at risk to pick up a gun and do a shooting. And the first message we say is, we want you safe, alive, and out of jail. They always let me start as the police representative. And I say, we're here because we care about you. We want you safe, alive, and out of jail. And here's all our partners here to show you how we care. And then some of the kids linked up with Len Jihad and street outreach to go meet and do stuff with them. Some of the kids had probation dates they had to suffice. And then, the educational piece, Carm Carolina and Huggy were there, and they were able to make sure the kids are connecting with school. So it's been kind of an ad hoc thing because of COVID-19 and because we have to kind of have them come out of the house. They can't do appointments at probation and stuff like that. But it's been really successful. And I think some of the best reaction is from the kids, A, but B, the parents have really been like, I feel like we're kind of re-energizing the parents to say, hey, these people care about my kids. I'm going to get involved too. So we're starting our second round of follow-ups next week. So that'll be interesting. And we're also doing a similar program with Hamden. Hamden's doing the same collaboration and going out to houses in Hamden. I mean, I'm not going with them, but I'm just saying it's been so successful that we've spread it throughout. So I give a lot of credit to my partners that I've listed here in the school department for giving us Carm Carolina and Huggy. And it's just really engaging the younger youth. At this point, Project Longevity is for 18 and over. But I mean, some of these kids are borderline. I want to say 7 of the kids we met are 17. They're going to be 18 by this time next year. So we'll have programs for them to continue. It's not just, hey, show up. What do you need? Well, we're going to keep continuing with these kids.
No, it's great. Thank you so much and to your partners for all you're doing. That sounds really important. And this is my ignorant. I mean, were you doing that before COVID with kids who, when it was in-person school, just weren't going to school, or is this new since it's kids who aren't logging on?
Well, we've always done this through Project Longevity with probation and parole for adults. And then we had our system with juvenile probation where we might meet at the courthouse or at juvenile probation. Real at-risk kids, we would go to their houses too. But with the COVID pandemic right now, we just felt, and there was a spike in youth crime, not actual shootings, but there's been a spike in youth crime, armed robberies, carjackings. So we felt we had to hit the street and kind of do the same things we do with Project Longevity for 18 and over for these younger kids. And it really works. Unfortunately, a couple of those kids we saw got arrested in Hamden for a carjacking last week. But hey, you still engage them. You still go out there and do what you got to do.
Great.
Alder Roth, if I can just add, Chief Jacobson clarified that Project Longevity is structured for 18 and above. but it does not mean that we do not work with 18 and below. If
We lost you again, Stace.
Stace, we lost you.
I'm sorry. Oh, Stacy, I thought you said.
approach.
There he comes.
Are you getting back?
Okay, our collaborative approach is what is our success, and it is what other departments across the country and across the world are looking to emulate, because as Alder Antunes can tell you, that in the past, police departments, the state didn't talk to the feds didn't talk to each other. And so we have broken down that. And whereas here in New Haven, it is a total collaborative, DEA, ATF, FBI, postal inspectors, juvenile probation, adult parole are all on board, state and federal court, federal probation. That is the key to the success. And that collaborative effort is what makes the difference. And that's what's been successful here in New Haven.
And Alder Roth, for example, I was on a Zoom call today for an hour and a half with Topeka, Kansas, who want to implement a type of Project Longevity, and were asking me questions about daily intel meetings, which is one aspect of it, custom notifications, call-ins, and basically I gave them my spiel, and then they asked me questions, and that's a lot of the stuff Stacy and myself, Chief Dominguez, we're all doing. We're being asked how we do it here,
No, that's great to hear. Thank you. I guess I'm curious, in the cover letter from the chief, it talked about domestic violence going up a lot during COVID. I know when we had a hearing on this early in COVID, those numbers hadn't gone up yet. I'm guessing they were up and just not reported or known. And I'm curious, I guess maybe it's a two-part question. One, will any of this funding be able to help in any way with the domestic violence situation? And do you have a concern that there's even more domestic violence going on that we're just not aware of because of the impact of COVID?
So I think that this could help, just having the resources, because sometimes the domestic comes in as a priority one, just having extra resources on the road, allowing the officers, maybe helping like as a backup, being able to, these officers are able to handle some of these violent crimes. So it's allowing the officers are handling these domestics to do a more thorough job, to be able to spend time with the victims and do a better safety plan, and just kind of ask more questions, because there's not that constant, the radio going, because more things are coming in. So it allows them to focus more time. So while it won't be this money maybe that we're putting towards that, it's going to allow for that to be able to be better investigated. And we have many meetings where we discuss domestic violence and how it is more domestic violence is happening because of COVID, and the injuries are becoming more severe that we talk about with our domestic violent partners, but they are going less reported. So we're not really seeing a high spike in arrest, but it's because the victims are forced to quarantine with their abusers, and there's less contact with the outside world. They're not going to school, that no one has the eyes on the children. So there's a lot of things that's making domestic, and I don't want to go on a rant, that's making domestic violence increase during the pandemic. And it's not always getting reported as often as it would have been with the help of churches and schools and other organizations that a lot of times are a lifeline for these victims.
And I would also add that the gun violence in domestic violence has kind of peaked a little, and these are the same offenders that we're targeting under Project Longevity, who might be parts of groups or gangs. And we've seen somebody involved in a shooting situation, we look them up and wow, they're wanted for a domestic. So we're going to go pick them up on the domestic warrant, and then that turns into a gun arrest. So it's kind of all connected in a way, the violence, the guns, and this money will definitely help with that stuff.
Thank you. Yeah. No, it's definitely a concerning issue. So I appreciate the efforts on that front. And then I guess my final question, and this maybe I'm sort of thinking ahead a little bit to the community crisis program that's being planned. And it's sort of interesting to think of how that might tie in with Project Longevity. And maybe it won't, but I'm just sort of curious to hear thoughts if that will sort of help kind of free up more, provide more resources and be beneficial in that respect.
So I just want to clarify, so will the implementation of the mobile crisis team be able to work with Project Longevity?
Yeah, and I think their main goal is mental health, and we know there's a lot of mental health issues in the community, especially the group and gang members, because they're subject to so much violence. So I want to see that. That should be connected. We should be connecting the mobile health crisis teams with people who are on the Project Longevity side, because they're not only are they involved in that, but they're also traumatized by it, right? So we do foresee some aspect where we're giving the mobile crisis team names where they might be responding to a shooting, even though it's a shooting victim, he might have had a gun too, but he still needs services too, because the mental health side is part of that piece that we haven't been able to do as good on. You know what I mean? So I think that is also interconnected.
Yeah, it's more to be able to use when we're in our talks about the mobile crisis. It's about how we're going to be able to work collaboratively. So it'll be Chief Jacobson and Stacy saying, "Hey, listen, we've connected with this person based on violence. Do you have any tools that you can connect?" And us being able to use the mobile crisis team to then reach out after the fact, because they wouldn't be responding to something like that, but definitely as a partner.
And we talk about the mobile crisis team's going to have downtime, right? They're going to be a shift of 3 healthcare professionals. When they're on a downtime type situation, we're going to provide them names. Hey, could you go visit this kid? He's been shot 3 times this year. There's got to be something going on with him in a mental health crisis wise. You know what I mean? So absolutely, we see it's all connected, and we're looking forward to that, because that's something officers can't do. They don't have the time to do it, and they don't have the skills to be that mental health provider for them.
Great. Thank you very much for all your answers to my questions and for everything you're doing.
Okay, you're all set. Also, Alder Roth. Alder Singh, you are next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have no further questions. Thank you.
Alder Smith.
Just want to be clear. Actually, my first question is, how many officers currently assigned to the districts?
So that's overall.
Yes.
So I can give you a list of officers per district, because it changes per district per shift. So in Westville on the evening shift, you typically have 3 to 4. But in New Hallville, you might have 4 to 5. On midnights, everybody has approximately 2. So it's shift specific and also district specific currently, if we were going to talk about bare bones to deploy.
So the reason why I asked that, because you said you're adding 2 more officers to that district with this grant.
Well, we would be able to deploy 2-person vehicles. We could use all of our money in a week and put it in every district. We can kind of, if the need arose, we could spread it out to quadrants, kind of like how the city used to be set up. And so a 2-person district is taking 1 quadrant, district 1, 6, and 7. We could kind of play around with it to make it each district be able to feel the positive impact of these extra beats.
The clarity. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. I saw a big smile on Stacy's face when he started talking quadrants the way it used to be. It worked.
We still have it broken down that way.
Okay. Thank you, Alder Smith. All right, we're around to you, Alder Crespo. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have one. So this is for both assistant chiefs. Can you just tell me what is the number of beats that we're going to get per district, if any?
I have to walk away from my children. I'm sorry. Which beats are we gonna get? I can't. This is life right here. Okay. What beats are we gonna get?
How
Yes.
many? How many
How
per
many
It's
district?
gonna
can
be-
we increase per district?
Oh, that's going to be crime specific. So we're not just going to, I don't want to just deploy extra beats per district just to deploy beats per district. I want to be able to use them to be able to have an impact on the crime, because crime is what we're trying to reduce here. So it's going to be driven by the intel unit. It's going to be driven by the violence. It's going to be driven by the district managers listening to the community and hearing their concerns, but it is going to be violence location driven.
And
Okay.
and just to add to that, Alder Crespo, good question. The like right now we see an increase in shots fired in New Hallville and in District 9, and we know there's a group and gang beef going on there. So the district managers, we meet on Zoom now. We used to meet in the station 4 days a week at a daily intel meeting. At that meeting, we have the FBI, the DEA, the ATF, and every unit of the PD, along with the district managers. And we talk about the crime, especially the violent crime the night before. Then we do, we will set up a plan how to address that crime. So right now, we're dealing with some issues in 9 and 7 where two groups are going back and forth. But in 2 days, if that changes and it's, the Hill and Beaver Hills, we can then deploy instantly because we have that intel meeting and move to those areas. So it is an increase in personnel, but it'll be specific to the violent crime, which is what the grant wants us to do.
I appreciate those feedbacks, because I can tell you that I've been getting recent, constituent concerns about the speeding and the crimes and the shooting. I keep getting phone calls that they're shooting in the middle of the night, multiple gunshots in Fairhaven. So specifically in District 8. And I've been hearing a lot of concerns from families, from folks not being able to sleep after they hear those gunshots. I believe there's a vehicle that has an exhaust system that appears to be also like a shooting, like a machine gun, if you will. And I actually heard that car. I heard the vehicle. I thought it was a machine gun. I looked out the window and it was a vehicle, just the exhaust system, I guess, spitting out whatever it does.
And we've seen that on ShotSpotter as well. We've seen that. I think it's the same vehicle you're talking about. It comes in as 10 to 12 gunshots, but when you listen to it, you can tell it's a vehicle.
Yeah. So to the layman's eyes, or ears rather, they're spooked. They're like, well, how come there's so many, gunshots now? What's going on? And the concern for Fairhaven. And in the recent article in the New Haven Independent, you see that Ferraro's is closing down, moving their business over to North Haven. And they didn't want to say that it's due to the crime, but let's be realistic. The crime in that particular area has increased significantly. Why? Because, Assistant Chief Dominguez stated that at midnight you have 2 beats or 2 officers for a huge district. It's not feasible to be able to deter crime or to be able to pinpoint it and nip it in the bud, because there's not enough officers. So hopefully with this grant, we can certainly not only look at those data-driven violent places, but those places that are neglected as well. And I appreciate, the time. So I yield back. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Chiefs, for your responses.
And if I could just add to Alder Crespo, we will have some beats that are 7 to 3 a.m. to add some extra bodies into after the midnight hour. And those beats will also be aligned with the ISD beats, which will be detectives, but some might be plainclothes and some are also marked. And they're really targeted enforcement going after specific gun-wielding suspects. So,
Gotcha. Thank you. Appreciate it, Chief.
It's good. Just for everyone to remember, the police portion of this is only going to be 30 days, basically. It's from December 1st to the 31st. That's right. So it's not a lot of time. The police are going to be working hard to put everything together and make it continue. I guess it's my turn. For the Assistant Chief of ISU, will you be targeting mainly gangs then? Is it going to be a main focus of your work with this grant? Chief Jacobson, you're
Yeah, I'm sorry. I would say we would target violent crime. So if that person is related to a gun incident with a domestic situation, we'll go after that person as well. We're gonna limit it to violent crime and gun crimes. If you see, I don't know if you guys have this part of it, but we even put an estimated in that 30 days, we set a low bar of trying to get 15 guns off the street. But I would say between Chief Dominguez's people and my people, I could see us getting about 30 guns off the street. And they're very good at that. They've been doing very well at that. Our gun seizures are up very high right now this year, which is good. We just want to see the result of less gun violence from that. But that's what our goals are, is taking the guns off the street, targeting specific individuals involved. But yes, if it's a group situation like I feel we have right now in 9 and 7, we'll go after the group, we'll talk to the group. And we always start through Project Longevity with conversations. If we know Johnny and Jimmy are involved, we're going to go to Johnny and Jimmy and say, cut it out. We know you're somehow involved. We're going to come after you. Cut it out. And we'll get probation and parole involved. If they're on probation and parole, we'll put a GPS on them. Now, if Johnny's in District 9, he can't go to District 7 and shoot because you got a GPS on and we'll know it's him. So we do those type of measures to immediately interrupt the gun violence. Then we backtrack, and you know, sir, from your days with the police force, backtrack and try to get that shooting solved or that homicide solved or whatever it may be.
You know, I can really appreciate the comment that was made before about the getting all the different departments together, because I recall back in my days, it was pretty much statewide narcotics. That was it. And after 1990, when we started working with more of the federal agencies, it did start to make a big difference. And I see the real good responses and results of it now. This question may be more for Ms. Karijian. On the reporting side, what kind of things are we looking for? A format or something, and reporting back to the state on the success or the activity of this program?
That's a very good question. They have not, OPM has not given us any direction on that. But the last OPM overtime grant that we had required that the officers that actually worked filled out very specific timesheets that outlined the day, the hours of the beat, and roughly the activities that took place during the beat. So I'm thinking that something similar is going to be required for this.
So now, at the end of that portion of the grant, could we get some sort of summary on that? What the results were?
Sure.
Turnout?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I could
Right.
pull something together with the assistant chiefs. Sure.
Okay, and you know, and I had another question for Chief Jacobson, and you can't see all the messy papers over here. I'm trying to make notes on. Guns. Assistant Chief Jacobson. With all the guns, the gun activity that we know is going on, the violence, and the interaction of the other agencies, has FBI, ATF, or any of those agencies been able to help? Because it seems like we do get a lot of guns off the street, but then there's more right back.
Yeah, the ATF has adopted a bunch of our cases federally. FBI has as well, even the individual gun cases. I want to say we got to be up to 50 or 60 adoptions this year, which is good because there was a period of time where grand juries federally were shut down due to COVID. They've since opened back up. We've done a bunch of more adoptions. They are actually working long-term cases rooted directly in gun violence. I can't talk about them, of course, but we're getting great cooperation with them. Like I said, 4 days a week, they meet us on Zoom and we talk about the crime in the city, and they update us on the cases they have, and we update them on people that might be in their case. So it's been good. We are getting more federal cases now. But I mean, it hurt when you went from May, I think, to July, where we had absolutely no federal grand juries, no federal adoptions. So we're catching up now, to answer your question, sir. But definitely, I think we're on record pace now, to get almost as many, if not more, federal gun adoptions than we had last year. So.
What is the breakdown? Do you see that there, when you start chasing these guns back, is there more straw purchases or thefts?
I would say a third of our guns are coming from down south where they're legal purchases and then brought up here because it's easier to buy a gun down south. I would say a third are straw purchases, and I would say almost a third are thefts. We do an accounting of all the guns at the end of the year. I know Sandy helps us with that at the end. So I'll make sure that I get you some of those results at the end of this year and see if I got the back years too. But I would say those three methods of how they get the guns is probably correct.
Great. I'll give my colleagues an additional chance if anyone has developed additional questions while we've gone through this. And just raise your hand. Alder up. First hand I
Thank
see
you.
up.
Excuse me?
So yours was the first hand I saw up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And yeah, my question, it's sort of specific to my ward. There was a shooting in my ward on Friday night, and that's not very common downtown. It was sort of on the edge of Dwight. And I think with COVID, with restaurants closing early, with bars not open, with theaters not open, movies not open, that is just much emptier, and I worry that that's going to continue throughout the winter. I know this is a very limited resource. I'm also thinking of the fact that the Yale Police Department, is a lot. Actually, I think the Yale Police responded to that shooting first, and students will be away for the most part from late November through the very beginning of February. And I'm just curious. This doesn't really tie specifically to the grant, but kind of what if there's conversations with the Yale Police, particularly with downtown being a little more deserted during COVID, kind of how to address that. Did my question make sense? I sort of
yeah. I mean, more presence downtown, I think, is what you're asking, correct? Yeah, I mean, this type of grant where we're going after gun violence, you wouldn't necessarily see us down there. But I will say we've had recent conversations with the chief of Yale, Chief Reyes has, about showing some visible presence as well, because there was a period of time they were withdrawn a little. So we have seen them out more. They did respond to that first, which was great. They did a great job. They held the scene. We're not, we're still investigating that, but it looks like somebody was being robbed and they were a legal gun owner and they protected themselves. So we're hoping that situation doesn't happen again, but we're hoping that the Yale presence along with will increase, because I think, this is the time of the year where we do see more robberies downtown and, usually with the holiday season. And although businesses are closed, we'll be on top of that and make sure. I mean, that's more for Chief Dominguez, sorry.
Yeah, I everything that Chief Jacobson said, but yeah, resources are going to try to be deployed into these areas, especially, that shooting was specific to a robbery, and obviously that is considered violent crime, and that's something that this is going to be targeting. And we realize that downtown, where there's more people and there's more business, hopefully, even though with COVID, that's where we may see some of those happen, especially around the holidays. So that's definitely going to be this can definitely be used for that for then. And this is right at the holiday time. This is right for the Christmas, the winter month, the December month.
And Alder Antu said it best. It isn't a lot of money, but it is a small period of time. So you definitely feel the impact of this.
Yeah, no, great. Thanks for that. And I almost more was thinking, because I know there's needs in many parts of the city that, the Yale Police could be a helpful partner for downtown if those resources had to go elsewhere. But again, thank you.
That's a very good point when we talked about other departments or federal partners, state. even probation parole becoming a part of what we do, or what you do, sorry. Yeah, some habits are hard to break. But have you really incorporated Yale Police? I mean, they're fully authorized police officers. Have you incorporated them in any of our efforts to fight crime?
Oh yeah, we had a dedicated officer in our shooting task force to Yale. He was very good at seizing guns. He's since gone back, but we're looking to get another one. They just today, Yale PD and New Haven PD did 2 joint search warrants related to guns. Yeah, we still do a lot of work together. Absolutely.
Good. Any other questions from the colleagues? I don't see any other committee members' questions. So I guess that's all we have, unless one of your staff would like to make any comments, questions, pleads.
I'll let Stacy Spell finish up, but I'd just like to thank the alders on the call, Alder Smith, Alder Crespo, Alder Antunes. We've seen you out pushing the violence, pushing the violence, pushing against violence in your communities. And you've had events, you've stood by us, all of you on this call, you've stood by us. And we just want to say thank you. It's an extremely difficult time to be a police officer and to know Alder Singh. I've seen you out at events in the Hill all the time. And I just appreciate all of you. We appreciate all of you and all the efforts you do, because we can't do it without you, and we need some support, and you guys have been giving it to us, so thank you. Stacy, you want to finish us up, senior statesman?
You notice Alder Antunes, he put the senior in there.
Yes, and I appreciate that too. I didn't get it this time. Thank you, Chief.
I just want to continue thanking you all for being a part of this. Thanking you for your support. I can't say enough. It is the collaborative approach that we have here. As you see the progression and the evolution even from the 90s, where we have all agencies involved on a daily basis, except for Thursday, which is the day of CompStat. It has truly made a difference. It is continuing to make a difference as we expand this methodology. We know this work works. We know this collaborative effort works. That a meeting that Chief Jacobson was speaking about started 4 years ago. Here it is. We're going into our 5th year in January. We'll be starting our 5th year. And it just shows you the power of collaboration, and once you take away the ego and personality and make it a joint venture, the success that we will have. We're looking to continue on that collaborative effort, build upon it, and expand. Thank you all for your time. And thank you, Sandy, for being a part of this and putting this together in so quick, because she really had no time to put it together. But she's a superwoman, so she put her cape on and did it. Thank you.
Well, when I say this, I think my colleagues will catch on to it more so. We had a former alder that always made the comment that relationships are the most important thing to getting the work done. And whether it's on the political side or the law enforcement side, it still works. You know, if you can't look at somebody in the face or make a phone call, it's just distant. So we appreciate everything that you do. I still have confidence in our police department and what you're doing, Stacy. It's a real help. I just see your name up in lights every time you turn around. So everyone appreciates what you're doing. So if we have no more comments, did you have a comment, Alder Singh? You're still muted, sir.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I just want to make a comment. Most of all, I want to say thank you to the team. Thank you to the chiefs. You know, this is tough time. And I know it can be a never-ending stuff. You arrest somebody and you think the job is over, and then you start all over again. And I just want to thank you for your commitment, your service, and the faith that you have in us and our community and your job. I just want to say thank you.
Okay, great. All right, so that you'll know, we'll close out by saying this. This is not for us, for this committee. It's not a voting item. It was a workshop to get a lot of questions answered and understand what the whole program is all about. the action has already taken place in the board meeting yesterday. So all I can say is I hope the state gives you the money and we can see some things happen. If you could let us know, either Sandy or one of your assistant chiefs, let us know how successful you may be with getting the money so we know it's going into action. And we can also be that conduit to the community between the police and the community. So thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. And our public portion is done. Now we just have to
Thank you.
close our meeting.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and second. There's no discussion on motion to adjourn. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's a unanimous vote. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you, Mr.